The truth is, I thought a lot about you while I've been on this trip. And by you, I mean everybody. I know as dynamic as the relationships are that I have with the people I know, that the people I don't know have as much, if not more, responsibility. Excuse me, I just kind of had some water go down the wrong way. It's been an interesting trip. It's rained a lot here. I often find myself in the midst of interesting weather anomalies. I've seen some wildlife that I didn't expect. Things I can't really explain. Heard some things that I still can't identify. But all the while I thought about you. And I wondered if you would be comfortable enjoying the solitude the same way that I was. I don't know that anyone can truly seek out solitude and want anyone to be with them. And at the same time, I thought about you. Today, I was taking down my tent, and I saw this flash. It looked like yellow. Just a flash. I'm rolling up my tent, and it's black, and it's got a tarp that you put under it. I don't remember what you call it, footprint, and it's black, and there's this flash of yellow. It's like I almost felt like I imagined it. It was right where I was like rolling the tent up with my hands, and like every time I would roll it, I would be like, did I imagine that? And that was kind of close to my thumb. And it was a scorpion. I knew it from the instant I saw the flash. In fact, I even probably knew it was there to begin with because I was already basing my last experience in the same exact spot off of what I might encounter for this situation, or vice versa. I don't know if I worded it properly. I'm watching this millipede cross over the still damp footprint of where my tent was. I know where the scorpion's at. The scorpion's under the rock that it disappeared under. You'll probably see the video. There are a lot of videos I made on this trip. And I've seen that exact same thing before, and I shared that video too. And I wonder, as I think about these things that I see and that I experience and that I could experience, and I wonder if you would be comfortable enjoying this, seeing all of the beauty and feeling all of the experiences that there are that help us to remember that we don't need much to persevere. And then we come to a point where we become comfortable in the uncomfortable. But I wonder if you, the person who's listening right now, would be comfortable also, on top of all of this, discussing why we didn't see a single bat on either night. Of course, there were thunder showers, but they didn't last all night. And I've been here for years where the thunder showers and the sudden dissipation of the rain and the emergence of all the insects of the night caused a wealth of night creatures, bats. You'd hear coyotes yapping, or foxes crying out back and forth to their mate. One year, a few years back when I started noticing these anomalies, there was just one fox, and it was crying out, but there was no return call from its mate. But there were no coyotes, very few bats and nighthawks. And I would talk this through with the people who were at the campsites with me. And now, as quiet as it is, and you see I'm sitting here, it's the morning after another rain. I got pretty sweaty, it was humid when I was taking the tent down. I wished I had a second set of hands to help me jam that compressed, rolled up tent into the tight tent sack that they send it with. I could just imagine it, me saying something uncomfortable like, let me stick it in. It won't fit. And just laughing our minds away, smiling, having fun. I wonder when we walked together as you were afraid of the insects that were flying around because you hadn't experienced it before. I wonder if all these millipedes slithering across, reminding me of horror movies, I can't remember which, where there were these things that crawled across the tile floor, always attacking people in bathrooms and places where they're most vulnerable, Only the horror movie flick enthusiasts will understand what I'm talking about. You'll probably know the name of the movie. But I wondered if you were right here, if you would have enjoyed this as much as I did. And for now, what I tend to conclude is that we're just either missing each other in translation, in time, in moments, or there's nobody on Earth. Well, I shouldn't say that. Nobody on this hemisphere, on this continent right now, who absolutely would endure the difficulties that it takes to endure, to be in the midst of all of this wilderness alone against anything, mosquitoes, serpents, carnivorous beasts. You never know what you're going to run into or what's going to seek you out as these times evolve, as there are less insects for the bats to feed on. As above, so below. What then of the animals on the ground? Why did I see such a skinny coyote immediately as I arrived at this park? Why have I not heard any coyotes this whole trip in Big Bend? I know they're there, and they persist, especially around communities where we still have things that can feed off of the things that we are wasting away. In other words, if we have garbage cans outside, if we have stored foods, the rodents are feeding off of that, which allows the owls that you're still seeing in the residential areas to persist. But even as those numbers dwindle, both from the predatory and the prey side, due to migratory anomalies and localized events, like freezes, for an example, I wonder if you would be comfortable out here talking about these things. And I think about you a lot, a whole lot. I wonder if you would be comfortable not only talking about these things, but being the barometer, experiencing these things real time. I wonder if you could sit there knowing that you had been sunburned. I know I'm sunburned. It was quite hot yesterday. By quite hot, I mean my forehead felt quite hot. but it was well worth it. As you see, the first day I got here, I walked out and explored. There were plenty of creeks and dry washes. And there's a place I found that has, like, after a rainstorm, has tons of water, flowing water. And the rarity of that in the desert made it so that the first storm that I endured, I would just, then I knew that if I made it through, well, the next day I would have some fresh flowing water to enjoy in the middle of this. You can hear some life. You hear the crickets and whatever else is making these bug-like noises. You see things flying. I mentioned the dragonfly, and I showed you another dragonfly. But I've been here before during these times, and I would wake up just the same way as today before sunrise. And I would break my sweat just walking just over the ridge over there, following the javelina that would walk up to these areas and pass through, many times oblivious to our presence. I know some of you were comfortable in the past doing these things, but I wonder now if you would still be comfortable doing these things, or if these things are beyond comfort, beyond logic. I wonder because I know what I saw in the park. There's no one else here in these campsites. This is a very niche group, the person who would want to come out here and explore these things. So, I wonder if you're listening. I wonder if you happen to be wondering the same thing sometimes, but under a different sky, under a different set of stars. I wonder if you wonder about me. When I'm not around. If none of this makes sense, I wonder if you understand ever that I'm still talking about the same thing, wellness and conservation. I wonder if when we become mentally stable, when we detoxify all of our thoughts so that they're no longer compromised by adversity and objection-based responses, once our minds are washed clean, once we peel off the layers that we had, I wonder if at all those levels we would be comfortable out here together, or if it was better that I walked these broken trails alone so that I can enjoy those fresh flowing streams, large enough to share, but in a way I did share, because there was wildlife that visited while I was enjoying the quiet dip in the middle of the super desert heat with intense sun. And all I had on was my sandals. I wonder at what point we transition from children to adults, and then back again to children. I wonder if for most of us that's only going to happen in a different sense, in a different plane, in a different time, under a different sky. I wonder if everyone thinks that all hope is lost, or if everyone knows that love is hope. And once you feel one, you feel the other. So, I have to be more careful drinking water. That reminds me, some of the water was so clear that had it been in a different configuration, I would have just drank from that water. But it was in areas where, since it was still fast moving, there were loads of sand that were also being carried down these streams. And so even if you just touched your lips with water, and eventually dried off and licked them for whatever reason, you would get a little sand grit. And by a little sand grit, I mean like 1 or 2 granules per lick. Oh, but what a glorious day. I'm supposed to be here for 2 more nights. But I know what I've seen here, and I know what I've put myself in the position of being able to see if it existed. The funny thing about that scorpion story that I was telling earlier is that there used to be nights you could walk around with the light, the black light, and just find scorpion after scorpion. Sometimes centipedes, they fluoresce too. But after looking around last night for quite some time, I just figured I would just find it under my tent. I wrote a song yesterday. I really like this one. I hope that you guys like it. It's going to be probably called Golden Dragonfly. And I think it's gorgeous because it captures exactly what happened. I was just here enjoying this same exact sentiment, which is that there's no place more soothing on earth for me than this type of isolated experience. I wonder if some of us need these experiences but are just uncomfortable enough already that it sure would be nice to have a friend experience something like this, to experience something like this with you. I wonder if some people need guides of this sort anymore. For people who are on a journey. I wonder if that's why I put together the website that I did initially way off the back, why I have the license plates I have. I wonder if it's why I have the ideas that I have about showcasing nature, that maybe that is what I'm supposed to be focusing on. And I wonder how come when I focused on those things in the past, I didn't have very much success. And so the only thing I can do against wonder and speculation is just put those thoughts in the past. And to sum it up, I literally had my sunglasses and my guitar and this vehicle. And in it is contained my sleeping gear, which I don't even need to put into a tent, which I already covered in another video as far as what my thoughts were about that during the intense rainstorms. And all in all, this has got to be one of the most blood pressure lowering experiences of any that could possibly be experienced. I listen sometimes to the inspirational radio channels, the satellite channels alike, and radio, and also to a variety of music and stories and presences and or personalities, I should say. And in every case, with those, even the subscription-based radio services, you're listening to something that could be all absolutely true, peaceful, and all that. And then, act now, and you can get this too. It's like an advertisement. how can our thoughts ever really just be allowed to flow into peaceful thoughts that have resolutions for everything? At least everything that you need or have control of at that moment. And do we ever actually have control? I wonder a lot about you. I wonder if you're there still, or if you ever were there. In a state where you could just basically pick up, go to a place like this, know that even if you ran out of supplies, there would be some purpose, some reason that something would show up. I wonder if anyone has that kind of faith. And I wonder also if anyone can stand to go without in order to absolutely receive those levels of peace that are absolutely right there for all of us. Those levels of freedom, right there, those levels of health, those levels of enthusiasm and joy. I wonder. Anyway, I've wondered a lot. I hope you're having a great day. I specifically hope to share this today. You may or may not know why. But whether or not you know why, it doesn't matter. We all have our own unique perspectives. I really wonder if me sharing these peaceful moments on this side helps you on that side. So if you could click on the comments field and add something that says something, or click on the description. There's a way to contact me offline. I wonder if somehow we aren't meant to experience some of these things not offline while still being offline. You know what I mean? In other words, some of these in-person experiences are something that I wonder if you wouldn't also enjoy. So I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry I don't clean the eye gunk out of my eyes anymore, comb my hair or anything like that. It's just you might, if you look closely, you might even notice I'm probably wearing the same majority of my clothes that I was wearing when I first arrived at this campsite. So the thing about conservation and wellness is that, you know, if you take what I say seriously about eating and you know how plant-based changes a lot of things, the first aspect that I'd like to say is true is that I certainly smell less funky when I eat just plant-based. It's almost like if you can imagine, just imagine your own self regenerating your own nutrients and cooling fluids, you know, your sweat. Imagine yourself generating all this stuff from what you're ingesting. So imagine that you're only eating fast food, burger type meals, whether it's, you know, one animal type or another. Imagine you're eating all those things with French fries, and you're eating all those things with fountain drinks. And I shouldn't even call them French fries. It sounds offensive when I'm talking about these things like this. But imagine you're eating some fried potatoes. They're delicious. All of it's great. I'm not making any comments about that besides that, you know, you and I know what I'm talking about. Imagine you're having all that. And then imagine you need to sweat, you know, and you're walking through the desert. It's a scorching day. Now imagine doing the same thing, but after having had pomegranates and plums and grapes and tomatoes, and imagine having, you know, all these beautiful fruits and vegetables, and imagine having those things, maybe even some nuts. But I didn't even bring any nuts on this trip. The point is that I felt so hydrated the whole time. I've never felt um, achy. I've never felt like I couldn't sleep. I've never felt unclear. I've never felt dehydrated. So imagine that in this space, for these last few days, I've had tomatoes, grapes, cherries, carrots, and water. And that's it. Imagine that that's all I have left. Still, actually, I don't have the grapes. I just finished them. And imagine I still would not have any trouble being here another 2 days. I just feel that for the purpose of documenting the wildlife the way that I'm documenting it and sharing this story the way I'm sharing it, which is very personal to me, I just imagine that perhaps, maybe, you're wondering a little bit about me too. And maybe you're wondering how you can help tell this story. And maybe you know that I can't tell this story without you. So either you're considering sharing this video or you're considering sharing a trip with me. Whatever the case is, it sure would be nice to make our introductions and impress upon one another whether or not we're okay functioning individually in this capacity. And by that, what I mean is, in a team who wants to experience solitude, we each must be able to experience things without having to worry about what the other is planning. And at the same time, if we were focusing on the same things out here, we would be able to experience a shared wealth of knowledge where someone maybe is able to identify these calls of certain birds, and maybe the other is able to document the things in a dizzying high speed capacity using a variety of technology or basic recording devices. Whatever it takes to encourage the participation of somehow sharing this experience, which is that I'm telling you there's been a drastic change to a lot of the creatures in many of the places that we frequent. Instead of letting this knowledge kind of die on the vine, I am looking for someone who is capable. Had to look under the blanket towel here. It's a big multi-used, the thing that I was covering myself with from the sun with. There was something tickling me, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't a sneaky scorpion, but it wasn't. It was just a rather persistent gnat. The gnat actually made it feel like it was a larger creature under there. Of course, anything under there. Probably wondering what I'm wearing now. Don't worry, the gnat was just on my leg, kind of on the part underneath your knee, behind your knee. The sensitive parts. Anyway, there are gnats, there are chirping bugs. I get it. I'm telling you that I'm not seeing a lot, and some people will tell me, well, you're not there during the right season, it's not when you see them. But for those who know what I'm aware of in these types of places and how much time I spend in these type of places, you'll also understand that I'm telling you for a fact that anyone who's going to tell me, well, you're not there during the right season to see things, that's true. If you're talking just bouts and bouts of certain type of things happening. But all in all, there are times when you know in your heart that you saw certain things year round, except for the coldest months. And this particular time, where the daytime highs aren't really too overbearing, they're not overwhelming, the rainfall is majestic. But there's still something that's changed considerably. When you don't see bats at night, hardly see nighthawks, definitely don't hear owls, not that many of them. And if you do, it's just like what I heard the other day, which I think was an owl crying out for a mate. I don't only think it was an owl, it sounded like a woman screaming, and I would typically think that was a mountain lion at first, but the amount of ground that it covered between cries, I can only think that it must have been flying. So anyway, once again, it would have been neat to have someone who could identify certain things, at least recall them in ways that I can't. I can recall certain things quite vividly, other things I'm not very adept at it. I'm sure practice would help, but in order for me to practice my craft, I either need to find a way to make it a full-time venture, or I just need to hang it all up, which is why I'm telling you that I'm going to sell all my camera gear, and why I feel very kind of almost, I don't know, it's a weird feeling, is all I got to say. These times have been challenging for a lot of everything, for everyone and everything. And without teaming up and helping one another, the only thing that's going to happen is they're going to become more challenging. So, hope that you've challenged yourself very little in terms of hearing this message. In fact, what I mean is I hope it wasn't boring for you to hear me for this long. I hope you're having a great day, and here's to many more to come, and peace, love, and all that old school stuff. Thanks.